We are likely months away from the reveal of Part 3 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, and even though it's been well over a year since the release of Rebirth, many fans are still discussing the events of the game and how it may affect the next installment. As an OG player, I've been trying to make sense of it myself, and I admit I can relate to a lot of criticisms made about Rebirth. While in general I was at awe of how good the game was, Rebirth left me very confused by its end. Thanks to a lot of discussions, Subtext's legendary video, I made peace with why the developers ended the game this way from an overall story perspective, how it ties to changing fate, and sets up Part 3 as a resolution to the argument for the cycle of life. But something about the ending still didn't click for me. I've rewatched a number of analysis videos to see if I've missed something, but I couldn't find a satisfying answer to the things that still bothered me. If Aerith's fate is indeed sealed, why show Aerith happy reciting her remake lines while Cloud appears to be at his lowest point yet?
Oh, how Aerith is it to hear from Cloud, we're gonna go fight Sephiroth? At this point, I watch this scene over and over again. I'm like, who is this? Who is this person?
Is the same Aerith seen by the lake as in the final scene? Many fans came out with several different conclusions, some suspecting a total collapse of Cloud's psyche, the involvement of Jenova, poor writing, or even judged Aerith's behavior as manipulative. However, after many discussions, analysis videos, I eventually ended up with an interpretation of the ending that sat right with me. And this game blew my mind all over again. In this video, I want to explain how I've arrived at my conclusion.
So, I'm an ancient. As in, a steward of the planet. One of those ancients. Or, to be more precise, the only ancient.
FF7 has very specific ideas regarding how life and afterlife work, and one scene that summarizes it best in Rebirth is Aerith's speech at the Temple of the Ancients.
You know, if you think about it, life and death are just two sides of the same coin. Our bodies may disappear when we die, but our spirits still live on.
When I played the game for the first time, this speech kind of bothered me, especially the line about life and death being two sides of the same coin. I don't know what kind of coins you've been looking at, Aerith, but life and death seemed pretty different to me.
Trick coin. I had a hunch.
However, the game is aware of this, not just because of the unenthusiastic responses from the party, but if you go back to a Cosmo Canyon conversation with Yuffie, she even offers a counterpoint to this idea.
When you die, you return to the planet? That has literally got to be the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Once you die, that's that.
Why do you think that?
I just do. I believe in anything else until I see some actual proof.
Frankly, I was more on the same page as Yuffie. Even if you believe in an afterlife, for many of us, this sort of explanation is primarily a source of comfort, not to be taken too literally, and this comes from Yuffie, who actually lives inside the world of FF7. I certainly wasn't going to buy into this concept by listening to the planetologists with their weird get-ups, or residents of Cosmo trying to sell me level 1 materials at non-discount prices.
May the planet bless you with wisdom.
However, Aerith is a Citra, so she does have a unique insight into this. A big example from her own life was the death of her mother, Ifalna. Even though in Remake, Elmyra speaks about Aerith's abilities as an ancient, I was stunned to read about the experience of young Aerith in Traces of Two Pasts. When Aerith first arrived at Elmyra's home, she described her experience as this. The day I first showed up, the flowers were there to greet me. I could feel them welcoming me on behalf of the planet. And I could feel my mom too, so I didn't need to cry. All I'd left behind at the station was an empty shell. My mother was still right beside me. Aerith even has conversation with her mother later in the story. That first night, Ifalna appeared at the head of her bed. "I'll be praying for you," she said with a smile, "praying that Elmyra comes to love you as much as I do." "How were you able to come back?" Aerith asked. "I never went anywhere at all," replied Ifalna. "You and I will always be together. We are connected." This recollection really highlights a fascinating aspect of the Lifestream, that it is interconnected. The Cetra were able to tap into the Lifestream and communicate across vast distances, accessing a soul or memory within it. People that are gone can reach out back to you if you come close to that energy. I believe one example of this is what happens to Barrett during the Cosmo Canyon prologue.
Thank you. Damn it!
Don't worry, it's all good, bro.
Hey, y'all heard that, right? That was Wedge.
Unlike Aerith and Ifalna, Barrett and Wedge are not of the Cetra, but even they can still experience these effects. So whether it's the souls of the dead returning to the planet, or still living bodies connected to that energy, in the Lifestream, all life is one. But you already know this. You probably played all the games I listed in this spoiler warning. And the game hammers home this information through endless expositions, side quests, and events, to a point that as I've played it, this information kind of just blended into the background. It was just the way the FF7 world worked.
Are you finished?
We get it, there's a live stream. Yet, I couldn't shake off this quote from Traces of Two Pasts, of Aerith describing her mother's body as an empty shell. She knew her mom wasn't truly gone, not just in a way that she'll be reborn again, but Ifalna even kept helping Aerith with settling into her new home. Elmira's in a tough spot at the moment, but I think you might be able to help. Be with her. When she's overwhelmed and looks like she might cry, sit at her side, like you used to do for me. As I was going through different ideas about the worlds, Aerith's story really put into the perspective how consequential someone's spirit could be in the livestream, but also how I started looking at death throughout the story. At the end of the church goodbye scene, we see Sephiroth enter the church about to kill Aerith in that world. This was an extremely moving scene for what it symbolizes, but at its core, we all instinctively knew that this is not it yet. This is just a shell that Omni-Aerith sacrificed in the chess match against Sephiroth. For Aerith and Sephiroth, the worlds are a battlefield for control. Our Aerith is still praying at the Forgotten Capital. We can still make it, except we don't. Not exactly. Cloud's will somehow splits the world into two, giving Aerith one more move against Sephiroth. She's thankful. But in the world that Cloud occupies, she's gone, and the party is devastated. Except for Cloud, who's special. Not Cetra special, but is somehow still connected to the world where she exists, because while her body was killed by Sephiroth, her essence has always been connected to the livestream and is still there. The famous Cosmo NPC talked about peeking through the looking glass if you come close to this energy of hopes and dreams, and it's a cool idea that this is what Tifa has experienced here, but if you are Cloud, the one who split this reality into two, let's just say, I think he's not just peeking anymore. At the end of the game, our party gathers by the tiny Bronco, and personally, I think this is our Aerith. While it's possible that Jenova cells within Cloud enable this illusion by suppressing and falsifying his memories, as it happened with Zack's death and throughout all the games, I do think it is Aerith's essence reaching out to Cloud. Jenova being involved in this way would be quite fitting because it would further justify the sinister vibes of the lake scene, but it would also make our Aerith appear in response to it, as a countermeasure. Her repeating a quote from Remake could be used as an argument that this is an imitation made by Jenova, but it could also be a hint that this is the Aerith that we've interacted with since Remake. And this is in contrast to an Aerith we've seen in the Dream Date. I also don't think it's a construct made inside Cloud's head, an amalgam of their greatest hits, a paper-thin version of the person he's lost. I believe Aerith here, in this scene, has a very clear intent that Cloud is oblivious to. How is it possible? My best guess so far is that he's seeing two worlds at once, and the game is hinting this through different camera tricks, showing us that Aerith is here, but she's not physically here, showing us a rift that only Cloud can see. I also think that all of this is possible because of the way in which the livestream works. So, quantum physics. The game continuously hammered home the themes, and the role of the Lifestream, so whatever explanation there is for what's going on has to be firmly tied to it. However, there's one key reason why, to me, this is our Aerith. What matters about this ending, besides all the mechanics at play that as theory crafters we love to speculate about, is that at this point, many players must have asked themselves, did we just get robbed of an essential theme from the original Final Fantasy VII? Did the devs butcher Rebirth just to delay the payoff until its third installment? That's not the FF7 I remember, is it? Of course, there's one good argument why the ending hits differently, but in an improved way, made by the developers themselves, who explained in several interviews how they've decided to depict loss not in a direct way like in the OG, but from the view of someone who's struggling to accept it. We not only see this through Cloud, but in a masterful move from the devs, many fans like me have seen it through ourselves. In trying to make sense of the smoke and mirrors, camera angles, and clear materials, the stage was set. We were wavering. Is she really dead? Who do we even see at the end of the game? I'll admit, this clever trick worked on me. I wavered, and I was obsessed with finding answers, but the devs also mentioned that the story won't betray the original, so I kept thinking, could they have done this differently? In Andrew Blewett's excellent The Final Fantasy VII Retrospective, I bumped into a quote from Hironobu Sakaguchi talking about FF7's core theme of life, and what struck me was just how closely it aligned with Aerith's speech at the Temple of the Ancients, the speech that I couldn't really connect with at the time. This quote forced me to listen harder to what Aerith was saying, and as I listened, I've realized that in my obsessive deconstruction of the ending, and in the anticipation of what will play out at the Forbidden Capital, which the devs primed us for since part 1, I've completely ignored that core theme of FF7. I've missed the significance of the fact that Aerith fully believes this, that Aerith have experienced its power through the death of her mother. And with that in my mind, I've watched the ending again.
If you think about it, life and death are just two sides of the same coin. Our bodies may disappear when we die, but our spirits still live on. We return to the planet, rejoin the Lifestream, and in time give rise to new life. Knowing that the people we love aren't really gone, it doesn't make it any easier to let them go. It still hurts, so we can't just think of it as a homecoming, because it's not that simple. We've all experienced pain. We all have our regrets. What we've done, what's been done to us, that's set in stone. The past is forever. But the future, even if it has been written, can be changed. It's true that the pain and the anger we carry can make us stronger. But at what cost? What toll does it take? I believe true strength doesn't come from any of that. True strength comes from our ability to forgive, to forge ahead in the hope of making things right. It comes from ourselves. So focus on the future, not the past. Do that, and not even Sephiroth will be able to stand in our way.
I will stop Sephiroth. Trust me.
You promise?
Promise.
And then it clicked for me. Suddenly, Aerith's cheerfulness wasn't as weird as I first thought, because the belief that life does not end with death is fundamental to what Aerith believes in. It's what she knows for a fact as a Cetra. Aerith also knows that Cloud cannot accept this truth yet, as was blatantly obvious from his response to her speech at the temple. She is well aware of what just happened, but the past, her death, cannot be changed. She and Tifa were always careful around Cloud, so her behavior here is actually pretty consistent with how she handled him throughout the game. So I don't see any nefarious manipulation in this scene, rather a reinforcement of what she proclaimed in the temple, that life and death are two sides of the same coin. Something her mother proved to her, that even after death, we are not truly gone, even though the pain of not being with our past loved ones will come, especially for Cloud. For now, just like Ifalna cheered her on with her new future with Elmyra, she cheers Cloud on. She trusts that he will find his acceptance, even though by letting the party continue, it means that Cloud will probably give Sephiroth the black materia. She is not at ease with this fact, but it's a risk she's willing to take. She tells him that she will stop the meteor because Cloud needs to continue his journey. I now believe that Rebirth's ending didn't give us the Aerith some of us expected, but it gave us the Aerith that we needed, the real Aerith, the Cetra, who wholeheartedly believes in what she said at the temple. Because a story that culminates just around loss would leave you feeling empty. The original FF7 did not culminate on loss. Its magic wasn't giving us the feeling that death is not the final goodbye. And that was how we could even begin to accept loss. However, without the tools to pick ourselves back up, there is no solace in loss. You see, as I was peeling off the layers of this ending, after hours of arguing about what's really going on, this game, the developers, exposed me. Exposed that I wasn't ready for what comes next. I wasn't ready to see that scene I thought was stolen from us. Strapped to this 80-hour crazy roller coaster of wacky, undiluted fun, slicing away countless enemies, I started the last chapter thinking, okay, it was time to face the final gauntlet and then let go of Aerith in the waters of the Forgotten Capital. But I was wrong. Instead of anticipating loss, I should have been preparing for it. I wasn't ready to say goodbye because what I was actually waiting for was a cutscene. The core theme of FF7 was always in Rebirth. I was just looking at the wrong one. What I needed to see is that through Aerith's belief in the planet, in the cycle of life, there is hope, even when something is ending. That acceptance takes time. That sometimes we just have to persist, even when it's hard. This is what she was showing to Cloud by the tiny Bronco. Because in order to resist whatever gambit Sephiroth is planning at the Age of Creation, Cloud needs to accept her truth. And as players, in order to relate to Cloud's journey, we need to accept it too. In terms of the story, to understand the loss of Aerith in the Remake trilogy, we have to understand the message of Rebirth. Even though I'm talking about a character in a fictional world, the lore that I was collecting like Queen's Blood cards suddenly hit me like a ton of bricks, because I care what happens to these characters. They've been with me for so long, I want their journey to have meaning. To be able to say a proper goodbye to Aerith, I had to put myself in her shoes first. And that just wasn't possible for me until she said goodbye at the end. And after realizing this, I came to love this game and its ending even more. But this time, when part 3 is out, I will be ready. Unless it is Jenova and we are all cooked, my friend. To be fair, it could still be true. I will admit, a good twist requires some misdirection, but it became extremely hard for me to buy this at this point. Looking in the context of Nojima's work, how much he and the devs care for this character, and her connection to the Lifestream and to Cloud, this sort of twist would feel a bit distasteful, especially since Rebirth really felt like an Aerith-centric game. I find it so fitting for her message to shine in the final moments of the game. Maybe the devs will use my confirmation bias against me, we'll see. My part 3 bingo card will definitely have Jenova impersonating someone from the party, maybe even Aerith. But to conclude, I do like this ending, and I think the devs really cooked on this one. I still have some thoughts on the worlds, which was actually the original subject I was exploring. They're tied to the Lifestream, and why there are multiple versions of certain people, like Marlene and Elmira. So if you're interested, I may one day finish that video. Until then, thanks for watching.